Good morning, everybody. I have the honor today of reading from Luke's Gospel, and this is the Song of Mary. My soul is alive with thoughts of God. What a wonder their liberating works. Though the world has been harsh to me, God has shown me kindness, seen my worth, and called me to courage. Surely those who come after me will call me blessed. Even when my heart weighs heavy with grief, still so does hope abide with me. Holy is the one who makes it so. From generation to generation, love's mercy is freely handed out. None are beyond the borders of God's transforming compassion. The power of God is revealed among those who labor for justice. They humble the arrogant. They turn unjust thrones into dust. Their wisdom is revealed in the lives and truths of those on the margins. God is the feast for the hungry. God is the great redistributor of wealth and resources. God is the ceasing of excessive and destructive production, that all the earth might rest. Though through exiles and enslavement, famines and wars, hurricanes and gun violence, God is a companion in loss, a deliverer from evil, a lover whose touch restores. This is the promise they made to my ancestors, to me, to all the creatures and creations now and yet coming. And in this promise, I find my strength. Come, great healer, and be with us. And that's Luke 1:46.
God be with you. So the passage that you just heard, as Suzanne said, you can find it in the Gospel of Luke. And it's a really big one in our tradition. It's one of the most famous, infamous passages, really, in all of the New Testament. It's called the Magnificat. And it gets that title from one of the first words that Mary says, my soul is magnified. It's also called the Song of Mary. It's one of the earliest hymns of the church. It's this song that our tradition puts in the mouth and the heart of Mary. And she sings it just after the angel comes and visits her and invites her in to be a part of what God is doing in the world. Right at the beginning of the Christmas story, the angel shows up, and the angel says, hey, if you want to be a part of this, God's going to put a baby in you, and that baby is going to change everything. And Mary says, yes, let me be the one to do that. And then this is the first thing that comes out of her mouth. The Song of Mary. It's this response of hers. It's what's in her heart. And it's this powerful songs of what you can see her thinking. This is what she is realizing she's a part of. This is what she understands God to be doing. This is what she understands this baby Jesus to be all about. And it's one of my favorite passages in the entire Bible. It's become a favorite, especially over the past few years. But here is what I learned about it on Tuesday at 12:24 p.m. I thought I'd give the passage a Google and see what, it says. What you just heard, what we just did, would be illegal in about 15 countries in the world. The Magnificat is banned from being read aloud in about 15 countries. What we just did would have been illegal. And so my question, of course, was why? Like, why not the whole thing? But why this one passage? What is it about this passage in countries that is so threatening? What makes it illegal? And so I did some more Googling. They're scared of what would happen if people took this passage literally. They are scared of this passage because this passage shows you just how dangerous God's love is. And now you might be there thinking like, wait a minute. I went to Sunday school. I have heard the songs. I know that God's love is the opposite of dangerous. It is a safe love. Nick, you have preached sermons exactly on that. It is this warm, tender, innocent, pure, safe kind of love that just kind of wraps you up like a blanket, gives you a cup of hot cocoa, and tells you, you are loved and amazing and beautiful. God's love isn't dangerous. And I would say, yeah, you're right. Almost. God's love is tender and innocent and pure and safe and is like a blanket and a cup of hot cocoa. Absolutely, yes, 100%. And this is where I get to say one of the words that one of my professors in seminary said is the most powerful theological word ever. But God's love is also incredibly dangerous. It is both safe and dangerous. Because here is a thing about God's love. And this pulls us into a really important part of our faith that we don't necessarily talk enough about. Our siblings in the black church, yeah, they get it right. In a lot of liberation theology, yeah, they get this right. But predominantly in the mainline white church, we don't talk about this enough because we don't have to talk about it enough. And therein lies a problem that we'll get to in a little bit. But in the heart of our tradition is this truth that says, yes, God's love is safe and beautiful and pure, but it's also incredibly dangerous because the kind of love that we talk about, the kind of love that we see Jesus embody, the kind of love that we're celebrating at Christmas, this kind of love that we're talking moves into the neighborhood and takes up residence in here and out there. That kind of love is a dangerous kind of love. Because what this love does, and you see this in Jesus, and you see this in the prophets, you see God doing this all throughout the scriptures. This is a love that goes in, and whenever there is a wall, wherever there is a barrier, wherever there is something that keeps people apart, wherever there is anything that ranks people, wherever there is anything that takes away worth and value and freedom, this is a love that goes in and tears it all down. Is an incredibly dangerous kind of love because it will go in and mess stuff up wherever stuff keeps people apart, makes people ranked, and takes away people's worth. It's a dangerous kind of love because if this love does anything, it is a love that moves towards and brings together. That's the kind of love that we celebrate at Christmas. This is the kind of love that God is. It is a love that moves towards and brings together. It is a love in the pursuit of making everyone have a place and everyone belong and everyone feel their worth. It is a love that goes in, and wherever there is a wall, it puts a table. Wherever there are fences, it builds a park. Wherever there is division, there is unity. That's what this love does. And in a world like ours, where there are only fences and only division and only ranking systems, in a world like ours that thrives off of systems that keep people apart, that take away worth, there's nothing more dangerous than a love that threatens to undo all of that. So no wonder it's banned. if people took it seriously, everything would have to change. And we're not just talking our systems. We're not just talking about our institutions and how we plan cities and how we deal with poverty and immigration and war. We're talking about even the systems and institutions that exist in here. All your narratives would have to be undone. All your wounds would have to get healed. All your family dynamics would have to get solved. Because what love does is go in and brings together and moves towards. And nobody, despite us being in here saying we want that, nobody really wants healing. Because healing is hard. Healing is a lot of work. It threatens to undo everything. But that's what God does. It stops at nothing until everyone is brought together and everyone has a place and everyone has enough. That's why love is dangerous. And that's why this passage is banned. That's why Mary in this passage was essentially committing treason, because she was saying, not the empire, not the things that take away my worth, but this. This is what I get to be a part of. And I'm going to say yes to it. And I'm going to be a part of undoing everything so something new can rise up. Yeah, that's what we're celebrating right now. That's what on Tuesday evening, when we all gather here for Christmas Eve, that's what we're going to be naming as happening on Christmas. This love has arrived that brings us all together and moves towards us no matter who we are, where we're from, or what's going on. We have a God who's coming into our lives and world to mess stuff up because the world is broken. The world is not how it should be. Our souls are not how they should be. And instead of coming in with hammers and violence and assault, we get a God that steps towards us, that says, I see you, and I see a space in between. That's not how it should be. Let's all come together because this is how the world's supposed to work. And through love, God makes it happen. Which is really, if you think about it, why we have Advent. Because Christmas isn't only just a celebration that that's who God is, but even more important, Christmas is an invitation to be a part of that. Advent is all about doing that work of showing up at the manger so we can say yes to letting that love transform this, so we can then go out and transform that. That's what Christmas is. Christmas is an invitation to say yes, just as Mary did, to let God go to work in us so we can birth out this love that moves towards and brings together. That's what we're doing on Christmas. And so yes, it's beautiful and safe and nostalgic and innocent, but it's also incredibly dangerous. If the powers that be knew what we were talking about, they would be outside our doors being wanted, like, let's just shut it down. Because it's threatening. It's threatening. Because of what it asks you guys is this. What space exists in your life between you and someone you know? What neighbor have you not met yet? What policies exist in our own governments that are intended to keep people apart? What injustice is in our own communities that we just turn a blind eye to? Or here's one for you. How does your wealth and your privilege keep you apart from people? How is it actually hindering you instead of helping? How is your own woundedness stopping you from actually becoming a person of love? How is it stopping you from receiving love? Those aren't fun questions. Those are hard questions that take most of us years to figure out. And that's okay. That's fine. That's how it works. But that's the danger. Because once you answer those questions, once you start seeing the gaps, once you start moving towards and bringing together, everything begins to change. And that is where we find life. When we start moving towards and bringing together. When we open up and say, God, we want you to put a little love into us so we can then go out and put it into others. And so your job, as we move a little bit closer to Christmas, is to let this dangerous love of God go to work in you so it can go to work through you. And in our tradition, we have all kinds of ways of doing that. We have spiritual practices, we have prayer, we have fasting, but we also have songs. Because there is something about music that spiritually, that physically, that neurologically changes us and sends us out different. And so for the next 5 or so minutes, your job is to let God put a little bit of love into you. And so my friends, I'm gonna invite you to stand. And as the band gets cooking here, we're gonna embrace and celebrate the fact that we don't just have a God that is safe and tender and innocent, but we also have a God who is dangerous and threatening and subversive and radical and revolutionary, and we get to be a part of that. And so find that part of yourself that wants to be James Dean, that wants to be a bit of a rebel, that wants to mess stuff up, that wants to poke at the bear, because we know love and life is on the other side. And that is where we find life as it's meant to be. A part of this love that moves towards and brings together and changes everything and everyone until everyone has enough and everyone has a place. So let's sing together as we celebrate and embrace that love.